Hello, beautiful people. My name is Jo, and today we are going to be doing a pretty large, pretty substantial book unhaul. And you can probably see them in the background. That's some of them. I have some more over here. So some of these books are school books. Since I just graduated college, I have no need for them anymore. But most of them are books that are just within a genre that I don't read predominantly anymore. So I just chose to get rid of them. We're going to turn them in for store credit. That's the plan. We're going to get a brand new home with a brand new mama, and they're going to love their new home, okay? So without further ado, let's just get right into it. I'm going to go through the school books right now, just very quickly. Criticism, Major Statements, 4th edition by some people. I don't need it. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I read it once. I don't need to read it again. We have Faust, Part 1. I just spit. So if you saw a slice of spittle go across the screen, ignore. Faust by Goethe, Part 1 and Part 2. I did really enjoy it. I did really like the character of Mephistopheles, but that was about it. This isn't a review. In Our Time by Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway is a man's man. I am not a man, nor am I a man's man. He talks too much about fishing and hunting and stuff. Christianity and Culture by T.S. Eliot. It was okay. Don't need to reread it. The Norton Anthology of World Literature, Volume 2. Don't need it. Heart of Darkness, my least favorite book in the history of books by Joseph Conrad. It's horrible. A Portrait of the Artist by a Young Man by James Joyce. This is kind of like an autobiographical situation. I didn't really like it. It was boring. Another Norton anthology. This is the Restoration and 18th Century. I have discovered that I do not like the Restoration period. The Age of Vikings by Anders Winroth. This was actually pretty interesting, but I really don't think I'm gonna go back in and want to learn about the Vikings. They have TV shows for that. And then the last school book that I'm get rid of is the Norton Anthology of English Literature, The Victorian Age. Another one that I've discovered I don't like the Victorian Age. So moving on. Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. I tried to read it. I didn't really enjoy it. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I really liked it. I don't want to keep it on my shelf. Similar title, The Outsider by Stephen King. I've read a couple Stephen King books, but he is not my favorite. This is another Joe Hill, Nosferatu. I really actually enjoyed this book. I enjoyed it more than the TV show, but I'm not going to reread it. Doesn't need to be on my shelf. The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I've never read a Ruth Ware. I don't really read thrillers. So, The Cell by Stephen King, which is one of my mom's favorites. Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I read this series forever ago. I used to have the whole series, but I have since gotten rid of the other two. There's dog hair all over it. Thanks, Mombo. It's going to the Goodwill. A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. I tried to read this one. I like the movie a lot, but this one just very slow. Very slow. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna read it. It's gone. It's all dusty. This one's been on my floor to get rid of for a long time. And that is City of Bones, Book 1 in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I loved this series in high school. Oh my god, it's disgusting. I love the series in high school. I since have no interest in reading about incest, but to each their own, I guess. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. This is like a teeny tiny little version. I have no idea. Covet by J.R. Ward. This is the first book in the Fallen Angel series. I thought it was okay. I'm still interested in reading the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I have the first book in that. Haven't read it yet. But I just thought this one was okay. So, more Stephen King. Mr. Mercedes. No interest. More Stephen King. This is The Shining. My mom has a copy of this. I don't need one. After You by Jojo Moyes, which is the second book in the Me Before You series situation. I don't know. I read it. It was really good. I don't have the first book, and I really don't think I'm going to continue on with the series, so I don't need it on my shelf. The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. I have no idea what this is about. I don't need it on my shelf. Born of Ice by Sherilyn Kenyon. I bought this at a library sale, and I found out that it is like the something in a series, and I have no idea what the series is about. This is a previous booktube favorite, The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I really liked this when I read it, but I don't ever see myself rereading it, and I think that it could find a very loving home with someone who will reread it, which is not me. Then I have some Barnes & Noble classics. I have Dracula by Bram Stoker. I have The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I bought these at a time in my life where I thought that I was going to be reading classics for pleasure. I bought these about 5 years ago. I am now 23 years old, and I have yet to have one of those moods where I want to read classics for pleasure. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I know that a lot of people love this book. It was okay. My favorite part of this book was the romance, which I wanted more of, and there was not enough for me in it. I'm not gonna reread it. The next set of books is a series that I know are a lot of people's favorites, and that is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I bought the hardcover set of these books. I was convinced I was gonna love them, and at the time that I read them, I was convinced that I was missing something or that I was reading something that somebody else was not, and I just didn't really vibe with them. They were okay. They were all right. Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. I really liked this when I read it. I listened to the audiobook. Neil Gaiman is one of my favorite authors. I'm not going to reread it. If I do reread it, I will be reading it via audiobook because it was a really good audiobook. Here's another school book that slipped in. This is Western Culture Today and Tomorrow by Joseph Ratzinger. I didn't like it. The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. I have no interest in reading it. I picked it up at a thrift store. This next series that I'm getting rid of is a definite favorite for a lot of people, and that is the Folk of the Air. Folk of the Air? Folk of the Air. Is that what it's called? The Cruel Prince. This series. It was okay. It was fine. I bought The Cruel Prince right when it first came out. I read 90 pages of it. I DNF'd it and unhauled it. I then bought it again and then bought the second two books, the second and the third book. I read the whole thing. It's all right. The Selection by Kiera Cass. This has been on my shelf for a long time. I read them once. I'm not going to reread them. I don't need them on my shelf. Amulet Volume 1 by Kazu Kibushi. This is a kind of middle grade comic. The art inside is absolutely gorgeous, and I really enjoyed the story, but I'm not a middle grade reader, and I'm not going to continue on with the series, and there's no real reason for me to keep it, and I think it will make a little kid very happy to find it at my local used bookstore. These two, again, I bought at a library book sale. They looked intriguing. I have since done a little bit more research, and I'm not really interested. This is The Kingmaker's Daughter and The Other Boleyn Girl. They're historicals. I'm sure they're fantastic. I'm not going to read them. Edge of Midnight by Shannon McKenna. I cannot read, apparently. This is not the first book in the series. Bought it at a library book sale. Don't need it. This is something that I bought because I thought it was funny. Femme, Goo Goo Gaga, and some thoughts on balls because balls are funny. This is by Jennifer Baumgardner. The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I read this book. I watched the movie. They're both really good. I really enjoyed them. I'm not going to reread it. The Steel and Fire series by Jordan Rivet. I still really like this series. This is an adult fantasy series. The first one being Duel of Fire. The second one being Kings of Mist. I just never picked up the third one, and if I were ever to do so, I would have to reread these two. And I'm not really reading adult high fantasy at the moment, so Eragon by Christopher Paolini. This I bought when I was in the phase of I'm going to read everybody's favorite books that I never got to read as a child. I never read it, and I'm not going to read it. The Lake House by Kate Morton. I read The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton in high school, and I was convinced that I was going to read more, so I got them, and I have not read them since. 5 centimeters per second by Makoto Shinkai and Yukiko Saiki. This is kind of like a slice of life romance situation, volumes 6, 7, 8, and 9 of Attack on Titan. I have actually bought the Colossal editions, which I like a lot better, which is an unpopular opinion. Kick my ass if you dare. How Rory Thorne Destroyed the Multiverse by Kay Eason. Eason? I don't know. I read it. I liked it. I'm not going to continue on with the series, unfortunately. The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. This is a beautiful story that is magical realism about grief. It was really good when I read it. I read it a couple years ago, but I'm not going to reread it. Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kimmerer. It was enjoyable. It's a YA romance. No spice. We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor. I don't really read sci-fi. The only sci-fi that I read is alien smut. So, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I read this. I really loved it. I read the second book and I didn't like it as much, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a third book, but if there is, I probably won't pick it up. I'm not really reading YA fantasy anymore. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This just seems like something that is way far in the opposite direction of my alley. Bye-bye. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. I really like, I think it's the Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson, which is the series before this one. I read this one a couple months ago, trying to get back into the world. It was okay. The Ichabod by J.K. Rowling. This one, I'm not sure what it's about. J.K. Rowling is not a great person in general, and I'm just not going to read this book. Sorry. A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This is book 1 in the Song of Ice and Fire series. Everybody knows Game of Thrones. I have never tried to read this. I really don't think it's going to be for me. I tried to watch Game of Thrones. I got like 2 seasons in and I got bored. And then the last book that is in this massive unhaul is Slasher Girls and Monster Boys by this plethora of authors. This is a thriller horror collection. There were a couple of stories in this that I really liked, really made my skin crawl, and then most of them though were just okay. But those are all of the books that I am going to be unhauling in this beautiful month of June 2022. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.